Okay, and here we go. So that's the intro. As I said, I'm loving the intro. I'm loving the intro. Thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Lady O. This is Mirror Work Conversations. I'm just sharing this right now to my Facebook. So just bear with me for a moment. When you do see this, we are now live, and the title of this podcast, and it's going to be part and parcel of a lot of clips that I'm going to be showing. However, the main title of it, and it's over on the YouTube, and part of this video is going to end, and I'm going to continue and upload it on Rumble as a result of what the content is going to be. I already know that Facebook, Instagram, and everybody is going to want to not show it, so I am aware of what I can show and what I'm not even going to try to attempt to waste my time in uploading it to Facebook. The title of this, episode 14 of Mirror Work Conversations with Lady O, the title is 7 Generations Later, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, the liberal government, and the Pope will apologize. And by that time, we are not going to be here. Our children's children is going to hear about it, and then everybody's going to be like, oh my gosh, how did we allow it to happen? And by this time, they know that compensation and everything is going to be so far gone. All we're going to be okay with is an apology. Our children's children is going to get an apology. I'm going to show you the pattern as to what I'm saying that we have allowed to occur. This pattern of just apologizing. So this all started, and I'm just going to jump right to it. This all started from, again, in a way, I'm very thankful in all the way of Mr. Tesla, Mr. Elon Musk, taking over Twitter. As a result of him taking over Twitter, we are now able to see certain contents that Twitter used to as well deplatform and take away. Now Twitter is allowing us to see certain things, and we just got to be thankful for that. So thank you, Mr. Elon, for taking it over. So there's a video that was on Twitter, and because it's on Twitter, and also because it's something that now we all are hearing about, we are hearing many come forward. We heard everybody now saying we got to live with it. We're hearing a lot of much more open diagnosis. It's now listed. It's not even a hush-hush secret anymore. It's now listed on the CDC, FDA. Everybody's now listing these things, these side effects, as what it was. So, long story short, I shared it, and then Facebook is still saying that it's misinformation, even though it's on CDC all of their organizations. It's there listed. Yet still, Facebook is still saying it's misinformation. So that's what I'm saying. 7 generations from now, we're going to hear apologies, but we're not going to hear it. Our children's children's going to hear it. And our children's children is going to remember that great, great, great grandma or grandpa was talking about this time in history. And it's no different than the apologies that come decades later to indigenous, to those from the African descent. 125 years later, decades later, we will get apologies. And that is why the title is 7 Generations Later. We're going to get an apology from the Liberal government at that time. Is going to be a new leader who's going to apologize for Justin decades ago. And the Pope, whoever the Pope is, 7 generations from now, is going to want to apologize to the descendants of the 2020 injured. And it's just a lot of apologies is going to happen. It's going to be after the fact. And this is all because of this that I had posted. A lot of people are going to be reading about this young man. He's elderly now, but you're going to be reading about him. People are going to be like, oh my gosh, he was doing an amazing work. And him and so many other doctors are going to be written down in history as the ones that were trying to get attention. And it's just going to be a lot of sorries, right? So I'm just going to show you the pattern. So now, if you're not aware, there is the I am sorry this happened. It's called understanding apology legislation in Canada. Who would have thought that we actually had a I am sorry this happened legislation in Canada? I'm telling you, and all the links to these are in the bio of my YouTube. So for those that are going to be listening to the podcast audibly, the visual of what I'm showing is going to be on the YouTube channel. And I'm going to be stopping what I'm going to be doing on YouTube. I'm going to continue it on Rumble because there's some content that YouTube is going to deplatform. But later on, the CEO is going to come and apologize. And at the end of the day, they're going to say there's no amount of money that we can give as reparations or restoration. Just going to be a heartfelt sorry. But you're going to remember that this is a sick, disgusting, psychological pattern. It's so disgusting. And it's a pattern that we, the people, allow to happen. We can't be pointing fingers at these people anymore. These people get away with it because we, in every generation, 7 generations before I was here, that generation allowed it to happen. And then later on, now we're hearing apologies. And now we're thinking, but it's happening again. And nobody's saying nothing until 7 generations from now. Those descendants are going to hear another, I'm sorry. But guess what? The elites and the people who do it still in power. They benefited, they profited, they're making money. Their children's children are still having legacy. We have people from the Freedom Convoy that's telling us about Justin Trudeau's children, how they're so beautiful and how they're so this. And I'm like, they're going to be up, they're raising and being raised in the same environment of believing that there is rule for them and rules for us. That we are bottom feeders and they're at the top. But so don't tell me anything about Justin Trudeau's children, because his children is not more valuable, more precious, or more beautiful than mine, than yours, than ours. Yet still, we allow them to do this. So this was first published in 2008. And look when it was revised. Last year, 2021. Interesting. And it says the information in this article was correct at the time of publishing, though. So they tell you at the time of publishing back in 2008, the information was correct. However, it's been revised in 2021. Now, for many, we would never know what the revision was. However, we now know that there is a I am sorry this happened apology legislation in Canada. Did you know that? Okay. So in 2021, they've revised it. They're setting the ground because all they have to say, all of these doctors that has done and stayed quiet and allowed their colleagues to get run over, all they're going to say is, I'm sorry this happened. And let me just break down to you what the legislation is. And we're going to hear the same apology from all of the new CEOs of all of these platforms that have made gazillions off of your fear, off of your hurt, they've made a whole heap of money, and their children are going to be sitting down and enjoying the fruits of their deception while your children have to work off the inflation, the debt of you allowing this to continue to happen, because now we're now moving on to a new drama. Something new is getting our attention. We're forgetting the point of contact. We're forgetting what set this in motion. We're forgetting it because we're allowing them to make us forget it, because they create a new drama, a new stress. And we forget to go back to December 31st, 2019, January 2020, February 2020. Nobody's going back to the point of when this chaos occurred. They're just making us now adapt, because they know human beings are what? Adaptable. And they throw new dramas, and we forget that we need to go back and revisit what started all of these quote unquote global hardship. So there's a legislation, as I said, I'm sorry this happened, understanding apology legislation in Canada. When a harmful patient safety incident occurs, and after the patient's immediate clinical needs are met, healthcare providers must fulfill their ethical and legal obligation to disclose the facts of the incident to the patient. The disclosure to the patient is an integral part of patient care. We're going to keep going on. The link to this article is also in the description of my YouTube podcast channel. We're going to go down, and it says here, apology legislation. All Canadian jurisdiction, I need you to see the beginning of that sentence. All Canadian jurisdiction, with the exception of Yukon, have now adopted apology legislation. One of the objectives of apology legislation is to reduce the concerns about the legal implications of making an apology. So they want to make sure that they reduce the concern that if I apologize, is there legal implications? So are you really sorry? Mirror work, people, mirror work. We're looking ourselves in the mirror, because we, the people, are causing our own harm. When we get apologies, when these people apologize, they're not apologizing because they're sorry. They're apologizing now because they can, without any legal implication. Because the last time I checked, as a child growing up, we teach our children to say sorry and not be concerned about what's going to happen. Just say sorry and face the consequence. That's part of maturity, right? That's what we told our children. Part of being ethical and mature is to accept the consequences. But now we have adults, and we have a legislation that's introduced to reduce the concern of any legal implications, aka consequences, when they make an apology. Because an apology is supposed to come after you've really discovered, and when you've acknowledged and you've seen that you did wrong, there was an error. We tell children, go and apologize. But now we have adults where they're concerned about their consequence when they make an apology. So that is why we right now have an energy, an environment where nobody's apologizing for what they've done. Nobody's apologizing for what they've done to Canadians for the past 3 years. Those on top and those in the places of knowing that they've done wrong, no. Nobody's apologizing because of a concern for legal implications. But in 2021, they introduced this legislation called I Am Sorry That Happened to You. Okay? The protection, listen, The protection afforded by the apology legislation is substantially similar among the different jurisdictions. So there's a protection that's afforded to by the apology. So the apology and the legislation is to protect. There's a protection that's being afforded to an apology. The last time I checked, when a child apologizes for something, are we teaching children apologizing, you will be protected? Is the apology about protecting yourself from the consequence, or owning up to what you've done wrong, making amends to the person that has been hurt? The apology is not about protecting you. It's about repairing the damage you've done to that person in whatever capacity. That's part of being human. Well, it was supposed to be, it used to be part of being human. That part of empathy where you're feeling what you've done wrong, the harm, and you're like, you know what, whatever the consequences, because isn't that what we have prisons for? Isn't that what we have the justice system for? When people plead guilty, is the guilty verdict being awarded and protected? Is the guilty verdict, when someone pleads guilty, are we protecting the guilty verdict? Is the guilty verdict being protected? So it typically provides that an apology does not constitute an admission of fault or liability. I am not making this up. It's right here. I'm not making it up. Apology legislation. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. When you think you want to throw in the towel, don't. Because the same way these men and women of disgustingness put in legislation, we can finally start to put public servants back into places and spaces where this legislation can be thrown out. Nobody should be protected from admitting that it's different if, listen, there's something called innocence, unaware, truly didn't know. Nobody's going to fault you for that. And there's a saying that when you know better, you're supposed to do better, correct? But now we have a legislation to protect adults that know that they're doing wrong and they continue to do wrong. And now they have put their people in place to put a legislation through. So after they've benefited from doing wrong, they can come back and say sorry, but there's no fault and there's no liability to them. Second point, it typically provides that the apology must not be taken into consideration in determining guilt or liability. So first thing, the apology does not constitute an admission of fault or liability. Second point, the apology must not be taken into consideration to determine fault and liability. My God. And the third thing that typically provides that an apology is not admissible as evidence of fault and liability. In most jurisdictions, the protection extends both to legal proceedings before courts and proceedings before tribunals. Come on now. They know what they're doing. This protects them of both legal proceedings before courts and proceedings before tribunals called common law tribunals around the world where people come and we say, no, we're going to have a hearing. Or quasi-judicial bodies, such as regulatory authority college, like the College of Professionals for Medicine and surgeons and all of that, right? Disciplinary committees or coroner's inquests. In Quebec, the protection is limited to civil actions. An apology is generally defined in the statutes. Oh my God. I just had to stop but no, I'm going to continue. An apology is generally defined in the statutes as encompassing an expression of sympathy and regret, and a statement that one is sorry, or any other words or actions indicating contrition, or commiseration, whether or not the words or actions admit or imply an admission of fault. What does that mean? You can read this all for yourself. 2020, 2021, and 2022 has created a lot of lazy learners. The link is in the description. So we now have legislation called I'm Sorry This Happened in Canada. And at the end of the day, the I'm sorry protects any legal implications when making an apology. And these are the three things that is going to provide. The apology does not constitute an admission of fault or guilt, must not be taken into consideration in determining fault or guilt, and is not admissible as evidence of fault and guilt. And they laid it out in all of the bodies that they know that a consequence can be given to them. They've covered their butts. Unless we continue to allow it. Let me tell you something about black and white and legislation. And they talk about majority rules. Our society has been railroaded because we've been putting a lot of majority of men and women who has changed the standard of morality. They've lowered the bar of morality, and now they're the ones. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we can also change. Every legislation, everything can be flipped over, and that is the cycle that they do not want to occur. That is why they're going after the young. That is why they're reading books and bringing in men and women of immorality to read your children books in schools, reading times. That is why in schools they are bombarding your children, because they know they do not want any generation coming forward to flip the script. And only we, the people, can allow it to happen. When you throw in the towel, this is a long game, ladies and gentlemen. When you throw in the towel and you're thinking you're giving up, you've won. It's a long game. They've been playing a long game with us. This didn't happen overnight, and they know it wasn't going to happen overnight. They took baby steps and baby steps and baby steps. We have to play a long game. We have to protect our children. We have to show our children the truth. We have to show them the traps, and we have to take our children away from their gaming, and we have to start reprogramming the next generation to rise up, men and women of true ethics, to pull back this nonsense. So no more apologies that's not attached to liabilities. Because now many of them are ignoring any information so they can plead plausible liability. So they're intentionally ignoring, not responding, pretending they didn't get it, to say they didn't get it. And that goes for all political parties. And that is why we talk about electronic emails. People can say, oh, I didn't get an email. Oh, it went to my junk. And that is why we go back to the old school registering mail, registering faxes. They've allowed email to be admissible to show proof of sending it. And you see as many people, so all of them could lie and say they didn't get it. But you make sure you've done your due diligence to make sure that the public is aware that you've done it. And if you can have enough people in the public to say, yeah, I saw it, then it goes back to their due diligence. If all these people saw it, how come you didn't see it? If all these people are aware of it, how come you weren't aware of it? And that is why word of mouth is important, because enough people could say, yes, no, I called them, I spoke to them, I brought it to their attention. So we can't give up. We cannot give up, because that is what they want you to do, become fatigued, and they want you to throw in the towel. But we can put men and women. So that's why they want you to be disenfranchised from politics. They want you to just give up and not even bother. No. Get in politics. Send your children to medicine. Send them back. Send them in there. Send them grounded. Send them knowing the truth. But you cannot have your children know the truth if you have social media being their guide. There's a podcast that I heard advertising on CHFI called something about adulting. And there's now teenagers teaching teenagers how to adult. And I'm like, wow. The blind leading the blind. Teach me how to adult. I think it's a podcast. You are going into adult. We're going to teach your peers how to adult, and you're not an adult. Where are the adults to teach the adults? Oh, I know the adults are all confused. The adults are switching all their pronouns. Don't know if they're left, they're right, if they're up, they're down. They have no idea who they are. They just go like the shaft in the wind. Wherever the wind of society blows them, that's where they roll over to. So there's no adult. So now you have podcasts that says, teach me. It advertises on Cycle on CHFI. Teach me how to adult. Teenagers teaching their peers how to adult. That tells you that the adults are missing. When a generation have to teach themselves how to adult, and adults think this is an amazing thing, it's an indictment on adults that there is none. Because everybody wants to be their child's friend. So their children the children don't have adults in their life. They have best friends. They have males and females that are in the position of mommy and daddy who do not have any moral compass, don't have any guidance. There are no beacons of hope. There are no beacons of light. They're just as confused as the children, and they're learning as the children are learning. And the children are looking at them saying, okay, well, if you don't have the answer, I guess I have to go out there and figure it out. Because you have adults, all they did is just grow up, but they're immature as if they were in high school. The maturity of ethics, the maturity of doing what is right is gone. It's about do whatever makes you happy and lie your way out of it. And if you apologize, just know there's a legislation that doesn't find you at fault. So let's move on. The next thing, again, showing you the patterns. There's apology legislation now in Canada. It's been here apparently since 2008, and it was revised last year. And it's in all jurisdictions except Yukon. Okay? You can continue, and you can click the link in the description under YouTube and it'll take you to that. All right? So the pattern of apology. We have here the Pope apologizing to the indigenous people. Hundreds and hundreds of years. Finally, and again, an apology. Apology for things that were done, that were known. Decades later, we get an apology. Society gets an apology, and those that did the harm are already dead, they're gone. No way for them to face their consequences. The victims died, suffered. Their generational trauma has passed on, and all they get is an apology. But the harm has been done and continued to do. And it's been decades. It says down here, the indigenous leaders have long called for a papal apology for the harm inflicted for decades of indigenous children. So again, after harm has been done for decades, let me shift it over, sorry about that. There you go. Indigenous leaders have long called for a papal apology. Again, waiting for these people to apologize for you to get closure. You know how you can get closure? When we stop waiting for them to apologize, and now there's legislation that protects their apology from getting any repercussion. It's this waiting for them to apologize when we fully know what they've done. And the power is in the people's hands, but they keep convincing you that you are powerless. So you wait for them to show some kind of contrition, and all you get is a heartfelt apology, and that's it. You row your boat ashore. That's it. So again, this cycle of apologizing for harms that's been done. Decades. And while the harm was done, men and women were alive, fully aware of the harm being done, and they said nothing. Because many are giving this silent loyalty to an entity, to a label. People are loyal to a party, loyal to a cause, loyal to a religion, loyalty to what they've been taught. In the image of a person, and not loyal to the principles of what the teaching was. The loyalty is supposed to be to the principles, not to the people that's in a position of the principle. Meaning, the loyalty is not to the prime minister in the position of leader of a political party and you've been told to respect leadership. A lot of people teach one side of a principle and forget the other side of a principle. To whom much is required, to whom much is given, much is required. And to whom much is required, much is given. They call a yin and a yang, the up and the down, the hard and the feather. There's a scale for everything, but we have continually just tipped over and stay on one side, not knowing that as a result of them being in these positions, religious positions, political positions, societal positions of a name called a president, a CEO, a boss, a supervisor. As a result of you walking in these positions, a leader of a political party, there is a high, tall order of accountability. And when you fall off, that accountability is supposed to come just as heavy as the title. But no, we allow the title to shatter our ability to make a judgment. Why? Because there's an entity that keeps lying to you, telling you, don't judge, lest you be judged. And the only people that don't judge are the ones who are afraid to be judged. That means you're doing dirt. So it's not about not judging. A lot of you need to really go back to some serious studying of what words and what principles are trying to say. It's not about not judging. Deal with your mirror. Clean up yourself so you can be in a position. That's what people say to me, oh, you're judgmental. No, I'm not judgmental. I have cleaned. That's why I can call out the dirt. And that's why I do not associate with anything that is not of integrity. As soon as something or someone comes to my attention and I smell it, I see it, I witness it, I observe it, I am gone. I am not loyal to anybody that has disrespected that office of whatever leadership they're in. They're disingenuous, they're manipulating, they're lying, they're unethical. Anybody that I see in a position of what we call authority, a position of trust, and I am aware, I can't, like many of you, turn a blind eye. It's not in my DNA. From since I was a little girl, that is why I get myself in so much problem. I don't have friends because I have a very short fuse. I give people the opportunity to do a course correction, and then when I see they're intentionally stubborn in staying in that mess, I am out. I cut, I go, I leave, I vacate premises. Quick, fast, and hurry up. As soon as I come, you see the smoke, I'm gone. I have low tolerance to be around people who I see are intentionally manipulative, deceptive, harmful, narcissistic, opportunist, selfish. Let me tell you, the list goes on, because I go back to the mirror image of let's make you Opa Hope Day. Let's make you Favel, Marsha. Let's make you woman. Let's make you in our image. The hour is none of those disgusting things. So it is my responsibility. It is your responsibility. It is our responsibility to do the work to return back to that image that created us unapologetically. And that would mean that we have to disassociate this need to have to fit in. We are in this world. We're not of this world. Many of you go to all your synagogues, your churches, your mosques, your temples, and you're far away from the principles because you worship the people, the person, and you're crucifying the principle, and you're saying, let the Barabbas go and let's crucify truth. Give me the person and crucify the principles. And you guys are walking around thinking that you're going to be saved by what? That is why evil is laughing and evil keeps gaining yards on you. That's why evil is saturating. It has contorted and twisted truth, where lie is true and true is lie. Good is bad and bad is good. When you're off ethics, they call you a troublemaker. They call you a ringleader. You're a disturber. And the person is disgusting and cantankerous and nasty and disgusting. They are the ethical. They're the leaders. They're the ones that are persuasive. They're the ones that have the crowd. They're the ones like the piper blowing wind up your you know who, and you guys are following like the mice. Why? Because we have turned into a generation that is far away from wanting to be the mirror image of your Creator. You no longer want to be that. You say it, you go to church, you go to Sabbath, you go to synagogues, you go to your mosque, you do all this stuff saying that you're wanting to be. And every time you get up and you get another breath of life to be that, you choose the easy way, which is to conform. If you go through all of your sacred passages from whichever religion you allow yourself to be a part of, you start to develop a relationship with the principles. And that is when you're no longer religious and you're actually a follower of the principles. Now you start to actually be morphed and be transformed with the renewing of your mindset. When you start to be loyal to the principles and have a relationship with the principles, you start to be a mirror image, my Lord, of the principles, and no longer look like the liars, the pimps, and the prostitutes on the pulpits. The ones that takes your money and keep you in debt while they are walking around living up life, but tell you that the scripture says that you need to be poor but they encourage you to be prosperous. Yet still 2020, 2021 came around and none of them were found full to give. Who had to give? Your government had to print money, not create wealth. They printed money and they were your saviors, not the places that were supposed to be the storehouse for the people. They were found without any relevance, and that is how they lost the salt, and they no longer are palatable, and they're spit out of the mouth. When the time came for the lighthouse to be the beacon, when darkness came and the lighthouse was supposed to be the beacon, the lighthouse was found without oil. I am throwing a lot of parables at those that say they're theologians and they know Bible and they know scripture. Let me tell you, 2020 and 2021 is truly hindsight. 2020 is truly our hindsight moment that many of you were found asleep. Many. So, the Pope apologizes decades after. Another apology. Then we have here Bill Clinton. In 1997, another apology. They rise up these leaders for you to love them and adore them because they know they're the ones that they're going to be used to lessen the blow. So you're not going to be requiring what you should require. You're just going to take what they give you, which is an apology from a man that we all love because he's so much like our community. So he now apologizes for the Tuskegee experiment. And he's going to admit what many were saying, and many were called conspiracy theorists, just like the Pope's apology, when many were accusing and many were saying what was happening, and they were called crazy, and there's no way the church would be a part of it. There's no way, and all conspiracy, and then now the apology comes out, right? And asking for forgiveness. Okay. And they just legislated the apology legislation in Canada. Okay. So we have Bill Clinton now apologizing for the Tuskegee experiment that during that time many were called conspiracy theorists, and there's no way your government and these people would do it to their people. The link for that is in the bio. Then we have another apology. The psychiatric apology. American Psychiatric Association apology, in quotes, because remember there's legislation. Apology is not about any fault or liability. So they're apologizing for harming African Americans and people of color, rejected as disingenuous, smacks of vested interests. So finally, an apology for what many were saying was happening, and they were dismissed. Finally, an apology. In 2021, you notice when these apologies and these revisions and stuff is happening? 2021. Let me tell you, all of you who are allowing this to happen on your watch, 2021, it seems to be the year of a lot of apologies and a lot of things happening for horrific acts to humanity. And all they did is just give an apologize and we're good. 2021, the American Psychiatric Association on January 18th, 2021, for decades, that word keeps popping up with all these apologies, right? For decades of psychiatric racism, harms, mental health, minorities, all of those trigger words you see here. All of these trigger words. So let's read it. The APA apology, January 18, 2021. For decades of psychiatry's racist harms comes when mental health research funds are now able to study the impact of racism and would lead to more minorities being targeted and drugged. The APA amends must be commensurate with the damage its members have caused. 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 The APA amends must be commensurate with the damage its members have caused. After more than 175 years. How many years? After more than 175 years. After more than 175 years. After more than 175 years. Now they're issuing a formal apology. After 175 years. After 175 years. A formal apology for what it says their role was in perpetuating structural racism when it comes to mental health, the mental health industry, and diagnosing, targeting, and drugging members of the African community. The link to that, again, is in the bio. So that's another apology. An apology that comes 175 years later. You're going to tell me all of this years, nobody there knew that what they were doing was wrong? Nobody knew? And these are people of trust, high ethics. They would never do that. When those on the receiving end were complaining, they would be dismissed. They would not even be listened to because they are accusing people with letters behind their names. BS and MCs and DRs and BSCs and MSWs, and there's no way. These people are of high ethics. 175 years later, now there's a formal apology admitting. And over there, the president says that he hopes to make an amends for psychiatry's history of actions. A 175 years later, they're now admitting that minorities were targeted and drugged. And when I read the article, you need to read it. And when complaints were lodged, they went through everybody have ombudsmen and disputes and all of these things. And even in your workplace, you have HR, you have human rights, you have human resources, you have all of these departments in these places give the appearance that there are people there for checks and balances. But no, if you have people of no integrity in those places, they're just there for show. And that's exactly what happened here. So another apology. Another apology. And there's lots more that I can go through, but I'm going to stop right there. Because at the end of the day, apologies, when they're there and they're saying that they're there to commensurate damages, when they're there saying over here, the apology, and everybody wants to make amends. I'm going to pull it over so you can see the word there. Everybody wants to make amends. It's right there. He says that it was shameful, that we can make amends and repair our nation. Everybody wants to make amends. Over here, they want to commensurate. Over here, the Pope, everybody's asking God for forgiveness. It's right here. I ask for God forgiveness, and I want to say to you with all my heart, I'm very sorry. The Pope continues. Then we have legislation that says, I'm sorry this happened, but the legislation protects them from any fault and liability. There's a pattern here, ladies and gentlemen, of humanity turning a blind eye when things are happening, when people are telling you things are happening, and people in positions at that time are allowed to live on and benefit from the hurt, the harms, the misery that they're doing to people. And then decades later, their offsprings come and apologize. And all your offsprings can do is just sit there and accept the apology. Yet still, though, they are still the benefactor. Their offsprings are still the benefactor of the harms that were done. And the people at the time when the harms were being done were suffering. So let's fast forward now to 2022, shall we? Where there's harms being done right now in Canada, where 7 generations from now, people are going to want to ask for forgiveness. They're going to want to ask to make amends. They're going to want to commensurate and ask for forgiveness. And let's heal. Let's do some kumbayas. Let's just love bomb it. Well, right now, we are aware of the harms that are being done. So when Facebook decides to right now in 2022 take down Give Me a Strike and many others strikes for sharing the right now information that is telling you about harms, what do you do? What do you do? You just be like, oh yeah, of course, that's Facebook. Oh yeah, of course, that's Instagram. But hey, I listen, I'm about making money. I'm not going to do nothing to mess up my account either, because I need to know how to get some high ticket sales and some clients. I need to know how to market my webinar. I need to know how my ClickFunnels is working. It's all about the money right now. It's about harms are being done to humanity right now. Still, right now. Employers are still enforcing it right now. Justin Trudeau is spending money on his yin yang while you have to pick and choose if to buy the generic brand or even skip the meal altogether. I just got in my mail my MP, Mr. McKay, where all of you guys are still voting for Liberals. And he has a calendar for the next 2023. And every month is his face showing you his nice, boyish, loving, Liberal side. And you guys going to go back to the polls and keep Liberals relevant, keep the NDP relevant. All they do is they come, they dump on you, make you not like the leader, get rid of the leader so you can still rally around your party. Oh, we got a new leader now. And it's still the same nonsense. People are being hurt right now. And what are we doing? We're going to wait for 7 generations. We're going to wait for 125 years, 175 years for somebody in the Liberal Party or somebody in medicine, in the College of Physicians, somebody who's going to apologize for what happened right now. And you are in the right now. and you allow these people to throw you a new disaster, a new conflict, and lie and tell you that the reason why they're still being able to get an amazing paycheck, Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh, they can still justify why they can get on jets, they can still have an amazing lifestyle, they can still have nannies, still have chefs, still go and get any groceries they want, buy the top notch. They can do all that. $6,000 a night because they need to go and mourn somebody when you could not mourn your loved ones. You had to Zoom it. You had to look over the internet. The funeral home couldn't hold your whole family. And you guys couldn't even travel because Justin Trudeau put a ban when the whole world, doctors from all over the world, like this entity called the Great Barrington Report, of physicians, doctors, experts, those that are in the public health science, epidemiologists, diseases, they all sign this. This link is also in the bio. And we allowed Justin Trudeau and all of them to run us over with fear. And you couldn't say goodbye. You couldn't go to your loved one's funeral, but he can go and pay $6,000 a night to pay respects to not a family member when you could not even go. And you're okay with it because you're a loyal liberal. And you're a loyal NDP, and they're flying all over the world telling you about climate change and all this stuff, and you're okay with it. The link to this is also in my bio. On my Twitter page, you can see the video for what my account was given a strike for. That's my Twitter, Opa Hope Day, pretty simple. And as I said at the beginning, I'm thankful for Elon Musk because Twitter was one of those platforms that was not allowing truth. And thankfully for Elon, now you can get access to it. But you're tired of the conversation. Let's just let it go. Okay. Was your loved one harmed? Was your loved one injured? And this is what I said in my Facebook. Let me go back to my Facebook. This is what I said in my Facebook. This is not about... Let me go back. This is what I said in my Facebook, and I said on my Instagram as well, because my IG also got taken, got a strike because I shared it on IG, and we know Instagram and Facebook are married together. And this is what I said on my Instagram, is that this is not about, let me pull it up here. I'm like, this is not about if anything happened to you. It was not about if anything happened to you. What I said here, the issue at hand isn't did you get harmed. The issue is that many have been. And many are being harmed. So it's not about, oh, well, I'm okay. Wow. No wonder they get away with it. And you can go on my Instagram, you could read the whole thing. Because again, I got to be very cautious with what is being shown because the people are allowing these platforms to continue to exist in deceiving them. And you, the people, are not going out and making sure that this pattern of creating harm in humanity later on comes back and apologizes when we are in the midst of the offense still occurring. We are allowing it to happen because they bring up new dramas for you to forget. And again, what caused all these dramas? What was the beginning of these dramas? So this particular person, Peter, this is his website. You can get to know him more. Get to know him. It has an amazing bio on who this man is. You want to talk about credentials. So when Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is talking about experts, I don't know how much more expert these people have to be. And it's so funny, before these medias told you who these experts were not, a lot of these guys were published. They are in it. Oh my gosh, it's right here. This particular man, one of the most published cardiologists ever in America, with over 1,000 publications and 660 citations in the National Library of Medicine. Listen, I'm done when his award, but apparently he's not an expert. He is a list of many, as I said, go back to this site, of over 934,000 signatures from experts with credentials as impressive as that man's, including those with Nobel Prizes and all that. Now they're no longer experts. And what I'm saying is, there's a pattern of us allowing harm to be done. And then 175 years from now, your children's children is going to get an apology. Some prime minister, some presidents that you're going to like is going to give you an apology. Some religious figure that you adore, that you have utmost respect for, is going to give you an apology. And finally, there's legislation that's going to allow them to apologize with absolutely no repercussions because of the men and women they've put in places and spaces in law, in courts, in senates, appointing them, so that nothing they do, their apology that they do, does not constitute an admission of fault or guilt. It must not be taken into consideration in determining fault or guilt, and it is not admissible as evidence of fault and guilt. There's a pattern, and all of these things are rolling out 2021. So, are you going to allow the patterns to continue where later on your children's children is going to get an apology, while Justin Trudeau's children, Jagmeet's children, Bill Gates' children, Fauci's children are okay? Bill Clinton's grandchildren are okay. All of our MPs and our MPPs here in Canada, they're okay. You want to talk about the net worth of some of our MPPs? You want to talk about the net worth of some of our MPs? While you are visiting food banks, and they think that because this giving you $500 top up a one time, and listen, one time $500 to help you with rent. One time. One and done. They're going to give you some dental for your child, but they started in December and it was only for 12 and under. So sucks if your child is 13 in October, November, July, or January. They're going to throw you some $200 help, $500 help, and you're there thinking the Liberal government likes you so much. And then they tell you the Conservatives are voting it down because the Conservatives are like, listen, we can do math. I don't know. I know Liberals are still saying math was racist during the 2020, 2021. I don't know if it's still racist or not. But apparently It's not logical. Math is not logical when you're liberal. Because no matter how much of these hand-me-down that they give you, it's not equaling what your cost of living is. But they're expecting you to be in such a dire that any scraps that the emperor dusts off of his table and it drops to the ground, the dogs, the commoners just run and they're so happy to get the scraps that the emperor throws down. Really, people? That is why the conservatives are like, we're not impressed. And when they keep getting up in the House of Commons and talking about the conservatives, vote down, you need to slap some of these liberals up their heads and say, excuse me, what are you talking about? This is nothing. $500 one time? Do you know how much rent has gone up? You know how much mortgage? Do you know how much food? What? That should be an insult to every Canadian. While he went and spent $6,000 every night at a hotel, he's giving you $500, a one-time $500, and you're running like the Liberal Party loves you so much. We are in a season of mirror work, people. And it's not Justin Trudeau's fault. It's not Jagmeet Singh's fault. It's not Russia's fault. It's not Ukraine's fault. It's not the WHO's fault. It's not the CDC's fault. It's not the NHS fault. It's not, who else am I missing? The WEF's fault. It is the fault of the people that keep being okay with the scraps that the emperor keeps dusting off of their table and letting it fall to the ground, and you at the bottom just there oh so happy to get scraps when they're living in a lap of luxury on your back. When is enough going to be enough? When is these patterns of disgusting behaviors and apologies decades later going to be enough? When are we going to see the pattern and say, not today, not on my watch? Enough. And when is the Conservatives Party going to start to make sure you have real, loyal, ethical conservatives representing your party? Because you have a lot of sellouts and you are another podcast altogether, Conservative Party. You know you have insiders that are not conservative. You know it. So it's more about building the brand and just throwing anybody to run as a conservative because the people want Conservative Party and they don't care about the candidate that is being represented as a conservative. It's just the brand. We're so brand related. And that is why the Conservative Party has been infiltrated and been turned more progressive towards falling off a cliff. So you also need to clean house, but I celebrate you. I'm thankful that you got Aaron O'Toole out of the way because he was so instrumental in Justin staying. And when we had that snap election, the Conservatives could have pulled a win. They could have. But Aaron was walking and sounding like no different. There was no difference. You look left, right, and center, and there's no difference. That is why I ran as an independent. I couldn't vote for none of you because you all were the same. And I am not one to go through this lesser devil tactic. It's like rotating one dirty underwear for another. One less dirty than the other dirt. I don't want no dirty underwear. I don't want no dirty drawers. No dirty panty. No. I'm going to get something clean. I'm not rotating filth on top of filth because one's a less filth. And that's all we've been doing, rotating this nonsensical ideology of lesser devil. Go with the devil you know than the devil you don't. Listen, it's called devil. Why don't we get out of this nonsense? and get rid of all the devils, lesser and minor ones, and start putting ethical people, and stop shadowing and caping and protecting those that we have discovered to be unethical. Don't cape for them, don't cover for them, and stop being apologists for them. Stop apologizing for them. And they know how to get the apologetic ones. Those leaders that have character deficiencies, they know how to rally the apologists on their side and make them look like they're the victim, and the ethical people as the one attacking them. And you're out there apologizing and caping for them. The season of mirror work begins. And not on my watch am I allowing any unethical leadership to be attached to my brand, be attached to me. I give everybody the equal opportunity to do a course correction. I make everybody teach me and show me who they really are. I take everybody's opinion, I say thank you, and I allow people to show me who they are. Why? Because we all have bad days, we all have bad moments, and we all should be given the opportunity to correct ourselves and be a better version. And as soon as I see that, no, what people say about you is the truth, this is who you are because you've been given enough chances on my watch to do a course correction, and I see that, no, this is who you are, I'm out. And I am unapologetic. People like to try, no, you're not, you make apologies for disgustingness. I don't. I don't stay any longer than when I see what I see, I'm out. Not on my watch am I going to be a part of the pattern of allowing toxicity to fester and grow, and then later on apologize when I fully am aware that what you're doing and who you are and what you represent is not integral. Not on my watch. And it's if each one of us Ontarians, Torontonians, and Canadians make that pledge, we will see and we can see a shift. But many of you just have given in. You say, what? Who cares? What bother? It doesn't matter. And that is what they rely on. They rely on that. But it takes one match. It takes one igniting, one little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. It takes one little light of mine. In the darkest, you can see that splitter. You could see that glitter. You be like, what is that little, that thing over there? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. It takes one little light. In one little corner, we're coming up to the story of Yeshua, Jesus, the Most High. That little light in that manger so far away. And that light was still crucified when the world said, give us a person and crucify the principle. Crucify the principles and give us the person, because we like the person. We despise the principles. I'm Lady O. Stay in action with faith and possibility. Walk in and protect your light. That little light of mine. Let it shine. Walk in and protect your light. Your purpose will find you. Say what you mean. And live like you mean what you say. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.